Shabbat Shalom, Danielle. Good to have you join us. Shabbat Shalom, Aaron. Really happy you're joining us live. Even though I'm sad that means you're not working in the show tonight, but good to have you join us. Not sure if Nikisha is with you too, but if you are, good to see you, Nikisha. Welcome to Sabbath Collective, a community of people interested in celebrating the Sabbath and pursuing God through a Hebraic worldview of the Bible. It has been one crazy week. And so tonight we're going to take a look at strengthening your immune system to protect against viral panic. And I really hope and pray that this is going to be helpful in a very practical way to all of us. Frank Herbert, who wrote Dune, said fear is the mind killer. And such a short and profound quote. Hey, Nicole, good to see you from Costa Rica. Shabbat Shalom. Hey, O'Dane, good to have you join us. Mikkel, Shabbat Shalom, good to see you. Hey, daughter, so happy you're with us, and hopefully my son's with you too. Shabbat Shalom in Taiwan. So reactions to COVID-19 have created a fear-induced panic for many of us. And really, this panic is most definitely dangerous to our health. So before we kind of get into what to do about it, I want to talk about what panic is. Hey, Ashley, good to have you join us. Shabbat Shalom. So much love for you back. Hey, Sissy, Shabbat Shalom. Hey, Juanita, Shabbat Shalom, honey. Good to have you join us in New Jersey. Love you. So what is panic? Is it a contagion? And if it is, how do we catch it? Is there some sort of fear convergence, a cumulative burden that builds to a critical mass producing panic? There's a lot of social anthropologists talking about what's happening with us now. Randall, Shabbat Shalom, great to see you. Alexandra, good to see you too, honey. Wondering what's happening with your planning. And those social anthropologists that are looking at what's happening now a lot of them are really making connections with historical times of panic. Panic can have physical and social effects. And those effects can be as fast spreading and with longer residual social implications than the pandemics themselves. Certainly in scriptures, we see communal panic in the Israelites multiple times. Sometimes panic that we see in the Israelites were actually even started by gossip. In more recent times, in the 1890s, French physician Gustave Le Bon reported that when people gathered in crowds, and here's his quote, all emotions are very rapidly contagious, which explains the suddenness of panics. And he made a connection, a reference to the new breakthroughs of his time with bacteria and how bacteria was attributed to diseases. And he also said, and I'm quoting, ideas, sentiments, emotions, beliefs possess in crowds a contagious power as intense as that of microbes. So this is as far back as 1890. And again, we certainly saw it in the times of biblical experiences. Panic was clearly understood as a communicable contagion, much the same as infections. The more crowded spaces were thought to be incubators of both infections and contagious panic. Of course, now our access to media, even when we're trying to avoid it, makes it more intense than any crowded gathering. We have 24/7 access to contagious messaging. Hey, Rebecca, good to see you, honey. Shabbat Shalom. Not sure if Derek's with you, but Shabbat Shalom if you are, Derek. Panic can also be induced by the prospect of some sort of apocalyptic event, even when that is completely illogical. Like we see people stockpile food and necessities, what they think is necessities, like toilet paper. They have eliminated the opportunity for other people to actually take care of their own necessities. Certainly, you don't need a shopping cart full of toilet paper. We also see stockpiling things that they don't really need at all, but others do, like masks for healthcare workers. Humans are social beings, and we tend to mimic the feelings of those around us. And this is called emotional contagion. And it can spread either positive or negative emotions through a group. If you see your friend smiling, you are more likely to mirror that smile back. We do that all the time with each other. And now, when we see images that are displaying emotions of fear and panic, there is this transmission of these feelings on a global scale. Hey, Beth, good to see you, honey. Shabbat Shalom. Uh, I know our or stockpile bottled water, exactly. Which is funny. This coming from our New York City all things water, and yes, that's absolutely true, Mikkel. I know our mind chatter can hijack higher order thinking when it perceives threat. We've been talking about this for the past 3 weeks, actually, before this even got to be a thing. We talked about redirecting mind chatter. Our minds are wired for fear casting to protect us. And as we learned about, that's called spotlighting. And what that is our minds magnify the risk and underestimate our ability to cope with them. It's actually a protective mechanism. Franklin Roosevelt's words have never rang so true that the greatest thing we have to fear is fear itself. Okay, so what if you're already saying, it's too late, I've already caught the panic contagion, I'm waking up at night, I'm worried about my kids, I'm afraid when I go out, I'm having invasive thoughts of what if, I'm binge eating or binge drinking, I'm road raging, my strategizing is way past plan A and B and all the way through to Z, wondering where I'm going next. Is it too late for me? No, it's not too late. You can strengthen your emotional immune system to fight off this contagion and be strong and healthy in the midst of this chaos. So now let's get into the practical ways we can do this. And if this is making sense to you, give me a thumbs up, or if you have a question about something or you're really struggling, let us know with the comments. So the first thing that we want to look at, number one, I'm going to talk about 5 ways. And by the way, there's more of these. There could be other people have difference of these. These are just 5 things that I'm hearing from the people that I'm talking to. Okay. So number one, we're going to disconnect from the source of contagion. Disconnect from the source of contagion. And we have a person in our community actually that just got done telling me that they needed to block their own mother from her phone because her mother was so negative and just too much. She woke up with a bunch of, like, I think 6 messages on her phone. And she was nervous herself, right? So that doesn't really help. Uh, and again, sometimes that contagion can come with checking social media too much, checking news outlets too much, who we talk to. When you do connect to information, make it a scheduled event, not an invasive one. In other words, every time we pick up our phone, if every time we pick up our phone we're seeing images, that's too much. That's invasive. We have no control over it. Schedule the times when you're going to check your news outlets, okay? Your trusted news outlets. You choose. You don't let it invade you. Then use science as a source. Here's a novel idea. Some of the streams of information are so filled with political rhetoric and racism and ignorance that not only is it not informative, it's devastating us. So again, choose cautiously and carefully. Hey, Derek, good to see you. Hey, Iris, Shabbat Shalom, great to see you. Again, this is really important to protect, to guard us. Proverbs 14:15 says, "One who doesn't think believes every word, but the cautious understands his steps." Whoo! Hello. One who doesn't think believes every word, but the cautious understands his steps. By the way, read some Proverbs if you want some wisdom and peace, right? Hey, Glendalise, good to see you, honey. Shabbat Shalom. Rebecca, what about people who are losing their jobs over this? Of course, yes. My son is actually one of them. It's hard because a lot of industries are impacted. Absolutely, they are. But we're going to get into all that, Rebecca, and hopefully we touch on all these things. This is not to minimize the reality of what's happening. I'm going to get into that as we go along. Hey, Carol, great to see you, honey. Shabbat Shalom. So, again, this proverb is so good. Too much information, too many scenarios, and yes, even too many options actually spreads you too thin. Witness the feelings rather than identifying with them. So, in other words, when you feel a feeling like your job, your place of business gets shut down, obviously you're going to feel emotions about that. Witness them, feel them, but don't identify with them. If you're tracking with me. And again, the past 3 weeks prior, we've been really talking about that. And I really think that was God preparing us because it is so relevant. Hey, Phoebe, good to see you. Shabbat Shalom. Hey, son. Hey, Eddie, how are you? Um, Avoid jarring pictures of empty store shelves and yuppies with overflowing shopping carts. I understand that we need to be informed about our politicians. I get this, especially when they are profiting from people's crisis. However, stay measured with the amount of exposure that you get. It's very important for your own mental health. And this is a huge one. Really big. Avoid anger and fear. Together, they are greater than the sum of their parts. Avoid anger and fear. Now, most of you know that the beach is my haven. When I lived in New York, it was Central Park. I had my places in Central Park, and I went there every time I could. And I love nature, and it is my happy place. It's my healthy place. It's also a healthy place to go in this time. I live in Florida. The sun, vitamin D, the heat of the fresh air. The virus don't like the heat, and the open space of the beach until spring break. Then, when thousands of people, most of them college kids, descend upon the beaches and pay no attention to the guidelines of assembly, which is supposed to be 10 feet away and no more, or 6 feet away from each other and no more than 10 in a group. In fact, of course, the news comes and broadcasts this. And in news interviews, basically these kids are saying, I don't give a damn about any guidelines. And of course, it prompts the lawmakers to shut down all the beaches in my area. Now, I have a problem with entitlement anyway. So I project that anger mixed with the fear of my own loss of the beach, my healthy place, onto all these young people. And it felt like a storm until I dialed it down. Now, fortunately, I didn't see any of these people, and I didn't actually lose my stuff on them. It was just all going on in my head, and I was feeling it every time I heard about it. I would just feel this rise because it got connected to all the entitlement that I hate, all the privilege that I hate in this country, and it got connected with the fear of my loss. For a second, it got very personally directed for me, and I was a hot mess with resentment. Aaron says, yep, sounds familiar. Sounds like something Yoda would say. That's so funny. So again, Carol's feeling the same thing. So this is a lot of us. Evelyn, good to see you, honey. Shabbat shalom. So this is really a lot of us. Um, I'm just reading what Alexandra is saying here. Yes, good, Alexandra. I don't want to read your whole comment. You can read that. You guys can read that, but very good. So again, I was a hot mess with resentment. And I had to walk that back. And I really realized how big this is, that fear and anger, when they get together, they're greater than the sum of their parts. So be very careful about this. Number two, in building up our immune system to protect us against this viral fear, avoid the perpetual planning loop. Now, this may not be all of us, but I have a feeling this is a lot of us. We plan and plan and plan and plan and plan, right? And when we're stressed, we plan some more. Plan and then trust your guidance. You can reevaluate later, but constant risk assessing and constant planning is a sort of self-doubting purgatory when you don't know and can't see the future. Yes, be engaged. Yes, do your research. Yes, lay out all your options. And then once you make your choices, rest in them and trust your own inner guidance. That doesn't mean don't ever revisit the decision. It just means don't revisit that decision every second of the day. Let it lie and breathe and do something else. It's very important. Proverbs 4:11 says, I'm directing you on the way of wisdom, guiding you in paths of uprightness. Now, when we hear that, when we read that, Mikkel is saying, always planning. Eddie, I know that wife of yours is always planning too. When we hear that, when we read that, that he is guiding us into paths, he's directing us in the ways of wisdom, we just need to settle into that. We need to calm ourselves and breathe and settle into that. That's why I'm really suggesting Proverbs. They're going to be helpful in this time. Number three, and this is so simple, but hey, we really need to be reminded of this. Trust in Adonai. Trust in your Lord. Know that no matter what happens, know, K-N-O-W, just know that no matter what happens, the Father loves you. And that love is abundance. Now, I know you're probably wanting to be in control in order to be safe, of course, but you can't be. So it's about letting go. It's about surrender. And I know it feels like a tug of war between your own managing and letting go, but it's really not an either or kind of thing. It's really both ends. One doesn't negate the other. If it does, then that thing is often out of balance. There's hyper spiritual and there's hyper micromanagers, right? The balance is where we walk in health. Do whatever works for you to connect with God. And if you want to share what that is, in order to kind of remind yourself and even encourage us, is it meditation? Is it journaling? Is it writing? Is it reading? Is it listening to music? This morning when I was meditating, I was sitting outside of my little house, and the birds, I didn't have to put earbuds in my ear to block out the noise of the street because the birds were my music for my meditation. Connect to those things because that's where you'll find and feel and discover that God is with you and that you can trust him. He's there with you. So, yeah, I know that, but we so forget it in these times of stress. Psalm 9:10 says, those who know your name put their trust in you, for you have not abandoned those who seek you, Adonai. And again, when we talk about the name with the Hebraic concept, the name is the character, it's the nature of the person. Uh, I've been doing craft products, Rebecca says. Yeah, that's on my list in a minute. That's good. um, again, the name is the nature of the person. So when we know God, who God is, we put our trust in Him. So important, so simple. And number 4, practice hopeful connections. Now, that doesn't mean be in denial like some people are. I mean, some people, it's a hoax, it's a conspiracy, it's this, it's that, it's fake news, blah, 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 blah. It's not going to affect me because I think I'm healthy. Denial is not what I'm talking about here when I'm talking about practicing hopeful connections, okay? We are woke, we are aware, we are red, okay? I'm not saying be in denial. But what this means is hope in hopeful connections is it simply means your focus is on finding the good and the hopeful. And then you will share those positives to others as well, affecting them. And we do that oftentimes by witnessing acts of goodness and practicing acts of goodness for others. The connections you will feel and share will be healing and strengthening to everybody involved. Hey, Kimberly, good to see you. Shabbat Shalom. Great to have you join us. Again, this is a really important one. Practice hopeful connections. And when we do that, it's oftentimes enriching to others. One of the people that I read a comment to something I posted today, she's a therapist, and she said, I'm going to help therapists who are doing therapy. I want to be there for them. And again, this is a positive and a good, and it helps others. And we need that. And the 5th one, which is so important and so overlooked, play. 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 Games, dance, music, read a fantastical story, laugh, learn how to play an instrument, have fun. I remember less than a month after 9/11, Saturday Night Live had a live show, and they did such a brilliant thing on this particular episode. Lorne Michaels stood on the stage with New York City Mayor Giuliani and asked, "Can we be funny?" And the writers had the mayor respond with such a brilliant, wise one liner. He looked at Lorne Michaels and said, "Why start now?" And it just broke the tension. The writers that gave this line to the mayor were saying, it's okay to laugh. And everybody laughed. It's okay to laugh. It's important to laugh. A happy heart is good medicine, but low spirits saps one's strength. So when we talk about building up immunity, we see here that one of the things that is good medicine is a happy heart, but a low spirit saps one's strength. Video games, Derek Joseph is asking. Yeah, I almost talked about that, but I felt like it would take too much time. You got to be careful with video games because of what happens in the brain. Okay, and so video games can be fun, and you can be talking to other people, and I get that, and it's really a tension release, but you can also get lost in them. So be careful, Derek, with that. But yeah, I get you, and I know gamers like that. Hey, Josh, great to see you. Shabbat Shalom. Rebecca says she's been struggling with memes. That's hysterical. Evelyn's saying it's a good time to declutter the home and the mind. So wise there. Randall is saying journaling allows me to empty myself of what's on my mind so I can be filled with something that may be ever more filling. Yes, Randall, right? We talked about this in one of the teachings in the past 3 times when we were talking about redirecting mind chatter, that sometimes we get so filled up with thoughts that when we journal them, we release them. And that's such a good reminder. Carol's saying, Uh, yes, ma'am. Cannot be despondent at this time. I totally agree, Carol. No, not good to be despondent at this time. Mikkel is finding the good and hopeful, which is really so important. Find things that make your heart happy and do them. I'm doing a lot of cooking. I'm doing a lot of prayer and meditation. I'm really into working out these days, and I can't go to the gym and do that, but I'm doing it with little weights at home. I can still walk in my neighborhood, which is great. I talk with people, which fills my heart with love. As powerful as panic can be, humans are capable of rising above our lowest inclinations. So, wash your hands, turn off the negativity, pray, take a walk, cook, do a cooking class online, eat healthy foods, FaceTime, text, or call someone. Focus on good things. Get enough sleep. Get out in the sun. Drink water. Read Psalm 23. Hug your pet, or better yet, foster one. Play your guitar. Dance. Color. Read a book. Then wash your hands again. On my Facebook page, I recently asked 2 questions about what people were seeing as positives and what learning lessons that they happen to be experiencing in social distancing, if there were any at all. Uh, Kimberly saying, I've been praying asking God to remind us how to be funny. That's a great prayer, by the way, Kimberly. Yes. And I was amazed at the openness and the awareness of the comments that I got on my personal Facebook page, and the connections of all the people to seeing good and even new beginnings. And one of the things that we really need to remember to do in these times, which we oftentimes forget when we get into survival, some changes look negative on the surface, but you will soon realize that space is being created in your life for something new to emerge. And that's Eckhart Tolle. And that is so, so true. All the people that are saying, I'm connecting with family, I'm releasing myself from obligations, I'm learning how to quiet my heart, I'm learning how to trust. And even in the midst of not being able to go to work, which I know is a lot of us, it's my whole household, okay, except for me. I can still go to work. But my husband and my son are not working right now, okay? And living in a small house together, that's a thing, right? But we can all be reminded of the simplicity and enjoy it and connect with it at the time, and even possibly make space that is being created in our lives for something new to emerge. And that's the good. And all of this will build your immunity against viral panic. So we're going to close this time with the lighting of the Shabbos candles. And again, as we know, the light of the Shabbos candles connects us to the power of peace and love and joy and unity. The light symbolizing all that we spoke about tonight. Light your Sabbath candles in your homes tonight. And let's connect to this imagery. And instead of fear driven panic, let's kindle love, hope, and peace. And again, we're all in this together, no matter how far apart we are. Shabbat Shalom.